Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Dojo Live, once again connecting with tech experts like you. My name is Kim Lantis, and I'm joining you from one of Nearsoft's offices in Hermosillo, Sonora, Mexico. Co-hosting with me today, per the usual, are my fellow Nearsoftians, Carlos Ponce. Hi, Carlos.
Hi, Kim.
In
Hello.
Mexico City, working from home. Hello. And Mark Shad, another Nearsoftian out of Las Vegas. Hey, Mark.
Hey guys.
So today I have with me our resident salesman. So today's Dojo Live topic will be right up both, I think, Carlos and Mark's alleys, because here to talk to us about a very interesting software as a service marketing tool, and of course that how to get your first 20 customers as a startup, is CEO and co-founder of Reintent, Mathan Parasuram. Did I get that sort of kind of right,
got
Mathan?
it. You
I'm
got
so
it.
sorry.
Pretty much.
Welcome to Dojo Live.
Thanks so much.
Perfect. So, Mathan, to begin, please just tell us a bit more about yourself.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, Kim. Nice to meet everybody, and glad to be here. So a little bit about myself. So I'm, I've kind of a bit of a seasoned entrepreneur. I kind of, had the bug since I was straight out of college, and I always wanted to, be on my own, even before I think entrepreneurship was sort of the buzzy thing to do. But I did all sorts of interesting businesses, before sort of landing in software. Everything from as varied as like teleradiology and car sales. So anything that was sort of going digital, I wanted to be a part of. And lastly, kind of where I am today is in the data space, specifically in the sales intelligence space. And I've been in the space for a long time, for about 10 years. I was at a company prior to this called iProfile that was acquired by a company called Discover.org. And today started Reintent about 3 years ago. And relatively small company. We're still very much a startup. So that's why I sort of picked this topic, because this is a topic that I think we have a little bit of expertise on, which is how to be a successful startup. And small company based in Austin, Texas. And that's where we are today. And I'm the CEO and co-founder of the company.
Perfect. So you had mentioned this bug that bit you long ago, but what was it? What was it that made you finally make that decision to take that leap to entrepreneurship? And what kind of tips might you add or give to anybody who's facing that decision right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I get a lot of younger people that ask me that, and I read something really good on that specific topic. Was I don't like the idea of starting a business because it's sexy or it's something cool to do. Because frankly, those kind of businesses typically don't last the test of time.
And it's all the trend today, right? With the newer generations of be your own boss.
That's right. That's right. And it's cool, and I can respect that. And a lot of people, do well kind of with that mentality. I like the idea of starting a business because you can't imagine not starting it, because you have an idea that's so compelling and so interesting, and you have some real value to add there, that you sort of have to add it, or you have to start it, or you have to really kind of create that value in your world. So I like it when people come from that approach, and that's when I recommend people start it. Otherwise, it's a tough gig, having your own business, and a lot of risk and a lot of ups and downs, and a lot of stress. But obviously the reward is worth it. But it's not worth any of those things unless unless you are really sort of passionate about that specific thing. And so that's kind of what I tell people, and that's really sort of, I think, my kind of MO when it comes to entrepreneurship, is only do it if you can't imagine not doing it. Otherwise, there's a lot of cool startups to work for. There's a lot of good businesses to work for, where you can really reduce your risk and sort of not have to take on a lot of the burden that a startup requires, founding a startup requires, but still get that experience. So it doesn't, you don't have to be the founder to necessarily get that experience, is kind of what I'm saying. Yeah.
So what was that value, that passion about Reintent? Tell us about Reintent, your current endeavor, what it does, and what it was about you that made you, I have to do this.
Sure. So I've been, like I said, in this data space, sales intelligence space for a while. And one of the primary things that was always, kept coming up with our customers. I was the head of sales at our previous company, and all of our customers would tell us is, I've got a big data set, and, I don't, first of all, I don't know, who I should need to be focusing on, who is my priority. I don't even know if my data is good, right? So they could, there's a lot of places to buy data and to consume data. but there's not a lot of places to know sort of how to prioritize that data. Where should salespeople be spending time? And so that was a persistent question from any size company, everywhere from, IBM was our customer all the way down to, small mom and pop sort of services companies. So we found that, that was sort of a big problem, such a pressing problem. We're like, we need to solve this because people still have this problem today. When we started the company in 2013, 14, we said people are still having this problem. We need to go out and figure out how to solve this. So that was really kind of the impetus for my partner and I to start Reading 10.
Nice. Very good. So as we go into your chosen topic, your title that you picked was getting your first 20 customers as a startup. So tell me about that number, 20. Why is that the magic number?
It's a bit of a magic number. It really is. And I chose that number sort of on purpose because it's kind of the number that a lot of investors and VCs say is sort of the magic number to find your product market fit. And obviously, by no means does 20 customers mean you're going to be successful or even that you have a lot of money. Just that there's 20 people that are willing to give you money in return for your service or your product. And it's a kind of a critical sort of juncture to hit that elusive product market fit. And so that's a great number to strive for whenever you're kind of at the place of, I just started my company to, okay, how do I know when this actually has some legs and is actually something that people want, right? Because you can always get a couple of people, or you could, use your sales skills to sort of maybe get 5 or 10 customers. But when you're getting to that 20, 25, 30 number,
you're onto something.
You're onto something, and there's some real momentum there, and it's for good reason because there's something that you're adding of real value. So I think that number is a really good milestone for a company when it's really young and early.
Okay, so talking about those milestones, so we can build on that just a bit more.
Yeah.
When you say customer in this context, what's that definition? Like, because it's not just 20 downloads or something, right? And then also, what should be an acceptable time frame to know that you're actually onto something? Because it could take you 10 years to get 20 customers, but that's not what we're going for either. So what is the definition of customer, and what should that goal of that time be?
Yeah, those are good questions. As far as the definition of the customer, I guess 20 customers is a bit of a number that's subjective to what type of business you are, right? If you're a consumer business and you're selling custom branded socks or something, 20 customers probably isn't that big of a deal. You probably need 200 or 2,000 before you hit that product market fit. I guess, to be specific, what I'm sort of speaking on is B2B companies. And particularly, for companies that are selling a product that has a price point of probably at least 4 figures or higher. And probably not the, $500,000 to $1 million and above, because 20 customers is a significant amount of revenue then for a small company. So it's probably somewhere in that $1,000 to $100,000 range, which a lot of modern SaaS companies sort of fit in and fit between. And so it's specific to that type of company, and product market fit obviously is a thing for any type of company. The 20 number, I guess, is specific to B2B companies. So you can sort of extrapolate if you're a consumer company as to what that means, that number might be. So it's that type of company. And as far as the length of time to get there, that's a little bit of a tougher question to answer because again, if you're a company that has raised a decent amount of money, you can probably give yourself a little bit more of a runway to get to that 20 person. But if it takes you 3 years, 4 years to get to 20, 30 customers, it's probably not because your sales aren't good or your skills aren't good. It's probably because your product's not really kind of screaming out into the world that it's something of real value. So it's a little bit of a thing that I think every entrepreneur needs to figure out on their own as to time to customer sort of ratio. But I think typically within 12 to 18 months, you should be able to get to that initial product market fit to know that, okay, this has some legs. Or if not, then, hey, we need to figure something else out. What needs to change,
right? Yeah. So what are those steps? What have you discovered? How can you reach those first 20 customers?
Yeah. And that's really kind of, and the reason that I think that it's something that I can speak on is not only do we, have we sort of reached that internally in our company, but it's kind of what we help our customers to do as well, right? A lot of our customers are smaller companies, a lot of SaaS companies that are trying to figure out, okay, who is our target audience? We're getting our first, handful of customers. How do I approach that? How do I go from, 2 or 3 of friendly customers to 20, 25 customers? Chances are I'm not going to know a lot of them. They're going to be new people. Right. And so that's kind of really very much in our realm. So we're sort of double qualified, I think, to speak on that. And as far as kind of how to do that, the very first thing, and I think this is probably the most obvious step, is, speak to your network, right? That's the most obvious thing. And everyone usually does that. They know that. Obviously you want to sort of wring the heck out of it, find as many people in your network as you can, as any good entrepreneur knows. But after that, that typically doesn't lead to that 2025 mark. And if it does, great. But then that probably still
mom doesn't count. I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly. And your mom probably isn't giving you $5,000 for your software or something like that either. So once you get past that, kind of, I think, friends and family, your network, sort of customer, number, typically that's a handful of people. And, even for us, that our first few customers were people that sort of introduced us to the right people and got, kind of a couple good lucky breaks, which is important to have. But once you want to get past that, I guess the real sort of key, that I wanted to speak on, in our discussion here was, how to get to that. And that's really what we believe in is cold prospecting.
Okay.
And it's not a new term. It's not something that obviously people don't know about, but it's something that people don't, I think, spend enough time and resources and effort in really maximizing. And it can be something as simple as, reaching out cold to people, or, it could be something as simple as, SEM or something like that. But I guess specifically what I'm speaking on, kind of what I think has the highest ROI for a small company that I assume is, cash constrained, time constrained, resource constrained, you need to figure out, marketing and lead gen, methods that are going to give you the most bang for your buck. And in our time, in our kind of expertise, what we found the best bang for your buck is in cold email prospecting. That really kind of gives you the best bang for your buck in, getting leads, generating leads for as little money as possible, experimenting with, new target segments and different target segments without making a whole lot of investment. And that's something that, while a simple thing, in concept, is actually takes a decent amount of work to get really good and get really good at it and do really well. It's not just a matter of blasting out, 1,000 emails and says, hey, do you want to buy my stuff? That, frankly, everyone's gonna be like, spam, mark that as spam, right? No one wants to get those kind of emails. So that's kind of specifically the one point that I think I really wanted to focus on as the best way to go from, that very initial traction to, hey, now we might have an initial product market fit.
Okay.
Yeah. Mathan, Tim, do you mind if I jump in?
Please.
I don't mind at all.
All right. So, Mathan, I got a couple interesting questions. So, how did you come up with the name of Reinvent?
Yeah, Reintent. Yeah, Reintent. Well, the idea is that we no data is ever sort of out of date, right? No data necessarily is dead, right? People will constantly buy data to be like, okay, more people. No, the idea is that you need to be strategic and smart about the people that you're prospecting into and targeting, and really kind of make use of every single prospect that you have at your kind of disposal, and not always focus on what's new and hitting.
I love the name.
So,
Next question. When you mentioned building a network, do you utilize LinkedIn, right?
Sure. Do I personally? Yeah.
Do you have a group?
We do have a group. I can't say we're super active, kind of within, Reinvent's group. But I don't utilize the group aspect quite as much. We do utilize, using our network to say, hey, who do I know that's in these companies, and figuring out sort of mutual connections for sure. Yeah.
What I was saying, what I'm kind of getting at is I've done this. And if you get a group and you're not selling like articles that are salesy, you're posting interesting information around your business. That'll attract people that you're the expert in your space.
Absolutely. Content marketing is awesome and has a great ROI. The only challenge with content marketing, I'd say, is the runway to go from, you know, creation of content to lead generation is a bit longer than, you know, actually reaching out to prospects directly one-to-one, right? Content marketing is awesome. I totally agree with you. It's a little bit of a longer term strategy than, hey, we need leads this quarter so that we can close deals this quarter so that we can see revenue and meet our goals by the end of the quarter. But absolutely, I totally agree that content marketing is critical for any size company.
Okay, good. Next question. And I'm not, you know, trying to interrupt here, but do you do you sell a product or services?
We sell both, to be honest. Our core, you know, sort of offering is a product, and it basically is a massive digital marketing, digital, you know, decision maker database.
Yes.
So a lot of SaaS companies that are reaching into other businesses want to know who's in charge of digital marketing, who's in charge of, you know, who's their CTO, who's in charge of this specific, you know, technology solution, and so they use our platform to find those people easily, you know, and to basically get unlimited access to 15 million digital, you know, decision makers. And you can find those people easily. You can know when they're sort of moving companies. So it's a database for kind of early stage companies to prospect into their new accounts. That's our primary product offering. And then secondly, we have a service offering which helps you know, slightly larger companies manage their CRM systems, their marketing automation systems when they go out of date, and make sure they get kind of are clean and they know when people move companies. So those are our two major offerings.
That's awesome. Now, do you specifically work with certain CRMs or like Salesforce?
Sure.
Whatever.
Yeah, no, we're not necessarily, you know, focused on just Salesforce. Salesforce is probably, I'd say 85% of our customers probably use Salesforce. So you know, we do have a great integration that's with Salesforce. That being said, it's not necessarily exclusive to Salesforce. A lot of our customers use our database just for prospecting, and it's kind of irrelevant to what CRM system they're using. And even on the service side, to get data cleansed and up to date, really kind of irrelevant. They can use our API and sort of connect to our platform and our service as well.
You have an API,
right,
that you can integrate with pretty much any CRM.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So I was looking through this. I'm actually looking at reIntent's website right now, and you have some really pretty large numbers thrown out there. The 1,800,000 in digital marketing e-commerce growth, 2,600,000 in customer experience, user acquisition, etc. So those are all of the prospects that your that reIntent gathers and filters through. That's what those numbers mean.
Yeah, so those numbers are basically what our users can access, right? So,
okay.
So you're a a smaller company and you're looking to find who is the head of e-commerce at this retailer, right? It can be tough to sort of navigate, figure out what their contact information is. So you can easily figure out, okay, who's all the people in retail companies between 1,000 and 10,000 employees that's head of e-commerce, and which ones are in California. And so you can come up with that list of those 5,000 people, and you can do this exact type of cold prospecting that I'm talking about to try to generate leads and try to generate interest and help add value to those companies.
It's pretty impressive numbers. You think 2 million people, I should be able to find somebody who wants to work with me.
Right, you would think so. Yeah, exactly.
That's really cool. And to have it filtered down. So in part of those filters, I'm assuming you as a user of reIntent must have your ideal customer profile defined, or how does this work? I mean, are you of the perspective of cast the widest net possible, or are you of the perspective more of you should go after the bigger fish that you're pretty sure you can catch or you want to catch?
Yeah, that's a great question, and the question every company has, I think, at some point. I think it depends on the size of your company and your traction sort of status, right? If you're an early stage company and you're just starting, and a lot of our customers are, and they're, hey, we don't know exactly which customer is our ideal customer, but we think it might be this, they think it might be X, they think it might be Y. And I said, that's great. That's fine. You don't need to know. And frankly, this is the right time to experiment. And so using a data source and being able to pull a bunch of data, whether you're using ours or somebody else's, you can create those segments. Okay, here's 5,000 people in this segment, and then 5,000 all these others, and you can tailor your messaging to each of those segments depending on what value you're adding to them, which is so critical in prospecting. A lot of people just don't do that. They create generic messages and expect it to sort of resonate unless it's specific to that audience, that industry, that type of buyer. They're not going to care, right? And so if you want to experiment, it's great, and you can leverage a platform like ours really easily to do that. And so you can try a lot of different segments to figure out what that ideal customer profile looks like. And frankly, I think I find that a lot of our customers, even at the 2025 customer mark, still don't know what that is. And even for us, we're always discovering, oh wow, this is a new segment that we didn't know that could get value out of our platform. And so it's always, I think, valuable to be trying it, especially with cold prospecting, because it costs so little. It's such an easy thing to set up. It's such a low, easy thing to sort of, get implemented, and low cost thing to get implemented. It's always valuable to sort of try a lot of different segments if you don't know exactly what your target is. And of course, there's companies that are we're specific to healthcare and hospital systems, and that's exactly our customer, and that's what we're building for. And great, then you can focus on that. But if that's not the case, and you're not sort of a niche specific solution, then I think it's easy, and I recommend definitely trying different segments for sure.
Does reIntent offer any type of data analysis in that sense, where you can track where you've had success and kind of help you build that profile or see better who you should be targeting?
Yeah, so we don't actually get into the analytics of campaign analysis. That being said, there's a lot of really good platforms and tools that we use, and I recommend, that are actually great for that. Because we're really at the top end of the funnel, which is, who do I need to be targeting? Period. Right? What is that prospect look like, and who are those people? And so we're really at the top of the funnel, and then kind of going down, you can use a lot of tools, and a lot of really affordable tools, to figure out sort of what those best segments are. Whether it's your email messaging platform, or you're doing it via a marketing automation system or something like that.
Right. So no, I'm not a salesman. I've never been a saleswoman. Rather, I've never been one. But I imagine that cold calling, obviously, it's time consuming, and it could probably be very frustrating.
Sure.
I think Kim froze. Kim, can you hear us?
And I'm sorry, this number no longer is in service.
Right.
And you just work down this list what the. So
yeah.
How is it that you guys at reIntent are able to kind of guarantee that accuracy of the results you're providing?
Sure. Yeah, and that's a great point, Kim. And that's one of the kind of the biggest challenges a lot of companies have, is especially when there's products out there that you can spend $100,000, $200,000 on and get something that's really good, because there's people that are calling those numbers and verifying them, and that's great. If you can afford that, I say go for that. But a lot of our customers are small companies that maybe have raised a couple $1 million, or have a little bit of revenue, who can't afford those kind of products. So they have to sort of use the best product at their price point. And so typically that's been companies, I don't want to name names or disparage anybody, but there's companies out there that are kind of the de facto prospect data services that frankly the data quality is very, very bad, right? It's really kind of unreliable. You're getting emails bounce back a lot. You'll get dead ends on phone calls. Those people don't work there anymore. It's that unfortunately has become sort of the expected norm in the data world, and sort of whenever you buy data, it's kind of become a dirty term. But that's exactly kind of why we exist, is we wanted to sort of not have to compromise when it comes to buying a good prospect data source, especially if you're a small company. And so the way that we're doing that or addressing that is really kind of in our technology, and that goes to the core of our solution. There's a lot of data products out there, and why are we different? Why do we exist? It's because of the technology we've built to really manage the data and keep it up to date. So we've actually got technology to verify literally every contact in our platform, all 15, 20 million people, almost on a monthly basis to verify,
Wow.
does Kim still work at Nearsoft? And is this still her email address? Is this still her contact information? Is she still at this office? And so we have technology to basically keep that up to date on a monthly basis so that as a salesperson or a marketing person, you're not having to do that research yourself. You're not having to spend a lot of cycles in figuring out who those people are, and then figuring out, is this data good? And then, having to hit dead ends, and kind of all goes to
Right.
naught at that point. So
And
trying to
not
sort
lose
of
your
eliminate that.
mojo.
Yeah, because that can
You're
easily
going
be
down the
really
list and no,
frustrating.
and then finally somebody answers the phone and you're like,
Oh, I'm surprised. I'm surprised you actually answered the phone. Yeah.
I don't know what to say. Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Okay. I just need to make a quick announcement here. If anyone, those of you who are viewing this as a question for Mathan, you guys right here at DojoLIVE, or right here on to our email, which is dojolive@nearsoft.com. Okay, so it's Twitter and email. So send them over, and we'll read them, share them with Mathan, and then he'll be able to respond either now or maybe at a later time through his website and every known means of communication. With that being said, there's something that I wanted to ask you, Mathan, and we're talking about here specifically going back to those folks who are starting out and they have this startup and they're just got funding, or they just have this big dreams of growth.
Right.
Okay, and then they're thinking, okay, I got to get my first 20 customers. When they're thinking of accomplishing this first goal, and one of the key words that John I'm looking at what you do during time is the intelligence. It's about intelligence. It's all about software as a service companies. Intelligence take me to something that I was personally interested in, which is predictability. Okay, yeah. Let me explain, and then a while ago, a few years ago, we took a training called Predictable Revenue. And it was all about a methodology that allowed us to make predictions now on revenue and on the revenue stream. And eventually we learned that this really did not work so well for niche type of services like software engineering, but it worked better for software products like software as a service companies like Salesforce, for example.
Sure.
So with this is, I'm just giving you the context, because my question is the following. Is there any specific segment or vertical in which intelligence can lead us to predictability better than the other? What can you tell? What's your view on predictability when using intelligence in these types of endeavors?
Yeah, great question. That the book that you referenced, Carlos, Predictable Revenue, is sort of the Bible, I think, when it comes to what I'm speaking about, which is kind of cold prospecting. And as far as sort of who that's best suited for you, I think you're absolutely right that this model of using cold prospecting is really best for products and really good for SaaS companies. Particularly B2B SaaS companies that are trying to find those customers. For services, a little bit less so because there's a little bit more about credibility, and the price points are often high enough that it requires some relationship building prior to sort of generating leads. As far as kind of predictability, I think I can't speak to the services side, but I know on the product side, using these kind of cold outreach strategies, kind of following that Predictable Revenue books model, really works at any size of company, as long as it's a relatively cheaper product, less than $100,000 ASP. It's going to work for you. It's going to work for that product. I mean, I'm sure there are exceptions to that for sure. But we've seen in our like I said, most of our customers, we've got close to about 150 customers now, and virtually all of them use our platform for that specific use case, and they're all quite successful. Otherwise, I don't think they'd be customers of ours. In finding customers through cold prospecting. So from a predictability perspective, I think cold prospecting can be really, really good. Now, is it the end all be all of demand generation and lead gen? No, I don't think so by any means. Especially as you mature as a company, as you get to 50 customers, 100 customers, 150 customers, there's a real sort of marginal decrease in effectivity on cold prospecting. So I think it really kind of is focused on the smaller companies, smaller product companies that are really kind of trying to scale and get to that initial product market fit is for who cold prospecting I think is really predictably useful.
Okay, thank you so much, Mathan. That was very insightful. Okay, Mark, let me pass on the mic to you. Do you have any more questions for Mathan?
I really enjoyed the conversation because I owned a company and I sold it it was lead generation.
Okay.
And I recently sold it when I started it at Nearsoft.
Okay, great.
I made a lot of money off it.
Cool.
That's the goal.
And you're in a good space. And I think you're definitely an entrepreneur, and I really respect and compliment you on how you responded to all of our questions.
Oh, absolutely, pleasure, absolutely. I love it. I love this. And if I can actually say one thing, folks. So the one thing I'd say is, or sorry, rather, to get started on prospecting and cold prospecting, I'd say there's a lot of different tips and techniques that you can find. There's some really good thought leaders online that you can find about that. That being said, if it's not something you're doing today, I just wanted to give a couple of points on sort of how to sort of jumpstart that. Today, tomorrow.
So my next question.
Okay, great. Just some real kind of actionable sort of things that you can do if you're a small business. I'd say there's probably three things, right? One is you want to sort of obviously get a data source, right? You need to find a good source of data so you can consistently send messages every day, right? You want that to be sort of an automated daily outreach to your prospects, so it's kind of happening in the background. You don't have to constantly be worrying about where the lead's going to come from, where they're going to come from. So getting a good data source, I'd say, is your number one thing. I'd love it for it to be reintent. If not, that's great. But I'd say get a good data source in place, and there's a lot of providers out there. Choose the one that works for you best. Two is getting a email messaging platform to send those emails. And the one thing that's important is that you choose one that's specific for cold prospecting. That is, a lot of marketing automation systems, email messaging systems like MailChimp and stuff are not built for that. Those are built for real kind of opt-in newsletters and customer messaging. So you want to get a cold prospecting platform. So just to name a few, there's one called Tout App, that's great. There's one called Yesware, that's good. SendBloom is one that we use that I highly recommend, that I really like. All pretty cost effective, not more than 50 or $100 a month typically, and you can literally send as many emails as you'd like. It works, kind of connecting to your own email platform. So that's number two. And then three is have a really honed message that's specific to your audience. I think that's where a lot of people sort of trip up, is they'll just send out sort of blasts of generic emails and messages that don't resonate with people. Ultimately, you have to answer, why is this valuable to my, to the recipient of the email, or why is this interesting? Why should it be interesting? Maybe you say, hey, we can solve, the big problem in HR that you guys have been having for the last 6 months. Give me a call, right? If you can say something that's very specific to them and to what they might have as their issue or problem or challenge, that's when you're going to get, people to respond. So just to recap, number one, have really good, clean data that's accurate. Number two, have a good email messaging platform that's geared and towards cold prospecting. And then three, have a really kind of targeted message that's honed to your audience. So those three things, there's a lot of little things you can do in those three things. You're gonna probably see some results.
That's excellent.
Thank
And
you.
I was just gonna, you stole my question. No, I'm so glad you did, because I was like, that means it was a good question. No, I was just gonna say, because I mean, when you think of a startup, more than likely, there's probably only 1, 2, 3 people who are um,
Right.
doing this.
Yeah.
Their job was to build their product, not necessarily professionals in what is sales or marketing, and might not have that revenue yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
To
So
do the
for
job.
yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah.
to have something laid out like you just did, I think can help relieve some of that pressure and like, oh, I can do this. Okay.
Yeah. For a couple $100 a month, basically you allocate a couple $100 a month, you can know that, hey, we're going to get 50 leads every month, or 100 leads every month, or whatever it is that from based on the volume you're sending out. So it's a great way to sort of get started quickly and see, do people kind of respond to your value prop.
Perfect.
Mathan, Mathan, I have another question.
Sure.
As we all know, the web is a live it's a live entity. So it's really it has like a life of its own, and it's very demanding. And when it comes to the way that information changes and shifts, and so in that sense, in the case of Reintent and other market intelligence tools and possibilities out there, at least from my standpoint, one of the major challenges is the real time factor. For example, if you go to Broadlook or Hoovers or what have you, there's always this thing about, I mean, I've encountered tools, I've evaluated tools that I say, well, this is not really real time, this is really not accurate, so they take a long time to update. So in that sense, with that scenario, what do you think that one of the greatest challenges to overcome when it comes to real time is? And,
sure.
and keeping everything updated in real time.
Sure. So, I mean, two parts to that, I'd say. One is that, that's absolutely a huge, challenge for any company, any size company, is, how do we get, number one, how do we get data that's real time, that's accurate, as of today, not of last month or last year. And unfortunately, that's kind of sort of expected, that data is going to be old whenever you buy it, because that's what people have gotten used to. But with so much data out there and so much, sort of real-time data available on the web, there's no reason that should be the expectation anymore. So the one thing from the input side, that is, how do we get data that's good? You can use a solution like ours, which is extremely accurate and sort of kept up to date as much as possible. There's other solutions out there, obviously, depending on what you're looking for. Everything's a little bit different. But that's what I'd say, is get a good data source, number one. And then number two, the other side is, hey, we've got all this data. We've got 50,000 records in our Salesforce account, but half of it, I think, is old or out of date, or what do I do with that? I still want to market those people, or maybe those people are even customers, right? That's the scariest thing, is their old customer data, and hey, I don't know where those people are anymore, and I'm going to lose revenue if I don't figure out where they are. So, and that's a huge problem, and that's sort of kind of the service component that we offer for mostly slightly bigger companies, which is, hey, we've got a big data set, but we want to make sure that it stays up to date, and that we know whenever people change companies, and then that people are, say they get promoted, they went from a VP of sales to a CEO or something like that. I want to know when that happens, because I want to give them a call and congratulate them, and frankly see if there's anything else that we can help them with. So the data management part is a whole other ball of wax, and something that we can help with as well. But frankly, is a tough challenge to address internally. A lot of companies try to do it themselves, and it's slow, it's expensive, and it's not worth paying somebody to do it manually, when it can be really kind of a pretty cumbersome process to do. So it's worth sort of figuring out how to get a third party like us or somebody to sort of address that.
Okay, thank you so much, Mathan. That was good. Okay, so Kim, do you have anything else for Mathan before we start the final segments, the final minutes of the segment?
No, I don't. I think he did a very good job of answering our questions, as Mark had stated, and very holistic message. I guess my only final fun question, we already mentioned one book that was very imperative to you and what you do. Any other reading material or anything that you might recommend to those who are interested?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot. I try to always stay up to date with, blogs and things like that, but those are fairly, focused on one topic. As far as books that are a bit more broader and helpful, kind of as a general salesperson or an entrepreneur, Definitely, I'd say predictable revenue is one on the list, the one that we discussed earlier. The second one, the one that I liked recently, actually, there's a gentleman, I believe his name is Chris Voss, wrote a book called Never Split the Difference. Pretty interesting book about, he's a hostage negotiator. And so he kind of applies that to sales negotiations and how, you should never split
For
the
real?
difference. Yeah. And he's a real hostage, former FBI hostage negotiator. And so his stories are fascinating, obviously. But he applies it to sales and how, splitting the difference never really kind of helps either party. And so that's a great book that I recommend, a fun one to read that's pretty popular. The third one that's a little bit more sort of software focused is one called Escape Velocity, which is a kind of a modern classic on software and building a software business. I mean, not necessarily software; it can really be applied to any size business, but really good for startups and figuring out sort of after you hit product market fit, how do you make sure you're continuing to innovate so that you really become the leader in your space? So really good sort of book to maybe pick up once you hit that 20 or 25 customer mark and figure out.
Which is
really
where you are right now,
right.
right?
I read that book. In fact, I was reading it last night to sort of review, but yeah, that's a great one. Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you so much, Mathan. All right, one more final thing, unless Mark, do you have anything else for Mathan?
No, just I really enjoyed this conversation. It was very informative, articulate, compelling, a lot of passion in what you do. And I thought it was great. So thank you.
Pleasure. Thanks, Mark.
Sure.
Good to meet you.
Thank you so much, Mark. Okay, Mathan, here's the thing. I'm going to ask you one final little thing. In wrapping up, if you were to, if I ask you to come up with, let's say, final words of wisdom for our audience, for those of you who are thinking of getting their first 20 customers at a startup company, how would you summarize these words of wisdom in 3 bullet points?
Good question. Okay, I'd say I can definitely think of 2 that I think we live by every day.
2 will suffice. Yeah.
One is don't wait for tomorrow to do whatever you have to do, because time is so critical in a startup to get sort of traction. But I'd say the most important one that I live by is when all else fails, or you don't know what to do, or you seem lost, or you're kind of like a little bit unsure on what the next move is, because that happens a lot for startups, is sell. That is the number one answer. That's always going to start addressing your questions. Revenue sort of solves all problems. So if you don't know what to do, focus on sales. Sales is your lifeblood as a startup. So I'd say that's number one. And I have to give credit where credit's due, because I did not come up with that. There's a gentleman by the name of Josh James, who's the CEO of Domo, kind of a startup that's much beyond a startup now probably, but really great BI company, and he's the sharp CEO. And so I stole that from him. So I can give him credit on that one. That's a good one. Just live and die by sales. Yeah.
Number 3, don't plagiarize.
Don't steal without giving credit.
Very good.
Perfect. Okay. Well, Kim, Mathan, and Mark, if there is nothing else, then the only thing left for me to do is, Mathan, is, again, a big thank you goes out to you on behalf of myself.
How can we get a hold of you? If anybody would like to know more about you.
Of course.
Yeah, would love to. Our company name, again, Reintent. It's reintent.com. You're welcome to email me directly. It's my first name that you see on the online there. It's Mathan @reintent.com.
Mention DojoLIVE and you'll get bumped to the top of the list.
That's right. You'll be my next call. You feel free to hit me up on Twitter. It's Mathan P @MathanP. So we're pretty responsive.
Yeah, and also I like to remind the audience that all this information, the contact information for Mathan and for Reintent, is going to be right there on DojoLIVE on our website. So keep an eye for that. Of course, you can always ping me and then I can redirect you, but the information is all going to be in there. With that being said, Mathan, really appreciate your having taken the time to be here with us today, and we're going to be in touch because I owe you one of these little babies here, a DojoLIVE cup.
I need one.
You get one of these on the mail. So All right, guys. There's nothing else. Then it's wrap up time. So Kim, it's all yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Mathan. Again, very interesting. Congratulations on all that you have achieved by dreaming and making it a reality. And see you next week, folks, on Dojo Life. Bye bye for now.
Bye bye.
Thank you.